1 minute ago, something shifted inside the Oval Office that no official transcript will ever fully capture, and yet its consequences are already rippling across continents with a quiet force that feels far more dangerous than any public confrontation. Before we roll the footage, just one thing. If you enjoy our work, drop a like and hit subscribe. Over 98% of you are watching without subscribing. Let's change that right now. It's free for you, but it fuels everything we do. Subscribed. Perfect. Now enjoy the video. The meeting between Donald Trump and Ursula von der Leyen was never meant to be ordinary, but no one in Brussels expected it to become the moment that redefined the balance of power between the United States and Europe. There were no cameras to frame the tension, no press to soften the edges, and no ceremonial gestures to disguise what was about to unfold. Instead, what took place was a calculated, deliberate confrontation in which one side arrived prepared to negotiate and the other arrived prepared to end the negotiation before it even began. The warning signs had been there from the very beginning, embedded in the way the invitation was delivered and the absence of the usual diplomatic rituals that typically accompany such high-level meetings. Senior officials within the European Commission reportedly described the request as unusually direct, almost abrupt, lacking the layered coordination that normally signals cooperation between allies. It was not framed as a partnership discussion or a strategic dialogue, but rather as an urgent necessity. And it's something that required immediate attention without the luxury of preparation through traditional diplomatic channels. Despite this, von der Leyen and her team treated the meeting with the utmost seriousness, assembling weeks of detailed briefings, economic projections and legal arguments designed to reinforce Europe's position within NATO and the broader transatlantic alliance. By the time her aircraft touched down in Washington, she carried with her a comprehensive framework of responses, each carefully structured to address potential demands from the American side. The European strategy was clear: demonstrate commitment, emphasise shared history, and resist any attempt to redefine past cooperation as financial obligation. Central to that strategy was a firm red line, a principle that could not be compromised under any circumstance, which was the outright rejection of retroactive financial compensation for decades of American military presence in Europe. It was a position rooted not only in legal reasoning, but also in political reality, as any concession on that front would have triggered immediate backlash across multiple European capitals. However, what she encountered inside the Oval Office was not a negotiation built on shared assumptions, but a confrontation designed to dismantle them. From the moment she entered the room, the atmosphere conveyed a subtle but unmistakable shift in dynamics as the physical arrangement itself appeared to signal imbalance rather than equality. Observers later noted that the positioning of chairs and the spacing between delegations created a visual hierarchy that placed the American side in a position of control, reinforcing the impression that this was not a meeting between partners but a structured demonstration of leverage. Trump's demeanour further intensified that perception, as he dispensed with formalities and moved directly to the core of his argument without the usual diplomatic preamble. When the folder was placed on the desk and presented as a comprehensive accounting of American expenditures in Europe over the past several decades, it became immediately clear that this was not an opening offer but a final statement. The figure itself, staggering in scale, was framed not as a negotiation point but as a conclusion, a calculated total that redefined historical cooperation as an unpaid obligation. Von der Leyen's response, "I will not pay," was delivered with the authority of her office and the certainty of her mandate, and reflecting both the legal stance of the European Union and the political constraints that shaped it. Yet what made that moment so consequential was not the refusal itself, but the reaction it provoked. Rather than escalating into a dispute or triggering a back-and-forth exchange, Trump's response was measured, almost anticipatory, as though the outcome had been predetermined, and the refusal merely confirmed the final step in a much larger strategy. What followed was not a negotiation, but a structured explanation of a plan that had already been set into motion, a sequence of actions designed to apply pressure across multiple dimensions simultaneously. The first element of that plan focused on trade, with the introduction of sweeping tariffs targeting key European industries in a manner that appeared both deliberate and highly specific. The automotive sector, particularly in Germany, was identified as a primary target, reflecting its central role in the European economy and its reliance on access to the American market. By imposing significant tariffs within a compressed time frame, the strategy aimed to disrupt production cycles, trigger economic uncertainty, and generate internal political pressure within affected countries. This approach extended beyond a single industry, encompassing pharmaceuticals, manufacturing, and luxury goods in a pattern that suggested a broader objective of fragmentation rather than uniform pressure. Each measure appeared calibrated to impact different member states in distinct ways, thereby complicating any coordinated response at the European level. The effect was not merely economic, but political. As national governments faced increasing pressure from domestic industries and labour groups demanding immediate action. At the same time, financial mechanisms began to shift in ways that were less visible but equally significant, particularly in relation to access to dollar-denominated liquidity and the broader stability of transatlantic financial systems. While no dramatic announcements were made, subtle changes in regulatory posture and market behaviour signalled a growing sense of uncertainty, prompting reactions from investors, central banks and policymakers alike. Analysts began to draw attention to the interconnected nature of global finance, emphasising how even minor disruptions in confidence could produce cascading effects across multiple sectors. As these developments unfolded, media coverage intensified, and with major outlets such as the BBC and The Guardian reporting on the evolving situation and highlighting the potential implications for global markets and political stability. Expert commentary from institutions like Oxford University added further weight to the analysis, reinforcing the perception that this was not an isolated dispute, but a turning point with far-reaching consequences. Public reaction followed quickly, with social media amplifying concerns and contributing to a growing sense of urgency that extended beyond policy circles into the broader population. The most profound shift, however, emerged in the realm of security, where discussions surrounding the future of American military presence in Europe introduced a new dimension of uncertainty. While details remained fluid, the possibility of a significant reduction or restructuring of that presence raised fundamental questions about the long-term framework of European defence and the role of transatlantic cooperation within it. For decades, that framework had operated on a set of assumptions that were now being openly reconsidered, creating a sense of instability that extended beyond immediate policy decisions into the deeper structure of international relations. Within European institutions, the response was immediate but complex as leaders grappled with the dual challenge of addressing external pressure while maintaining internal cohesion. Emergency meetings were convened, statements were issued, and strategic options were evaluated, but the path forward remained uncertain. And shaped by competing priorities and the need to balance national interests with collective responsibility. The situation exposed underlying tensions that had previously been managed through consensus, revealing the difficulty of sustaining unity under conditions of sustained external stress. Globally, reactions varied, with some nations expressing concern while others observed the situation as an opportunity to reassess their own positions within the shifting landscape. The absence of a clear resolution further contributed to the sense that this was not a temporary dispute, but an evolving process with unpredictable outcomes. Analysts continue to debate the long-term implications, focusing on questions of economic resilience, political stability, and the future of international alliances in an increasingly complex environment. As von der Leyen returned to Europe, the immediate focus shifted from the meeting itself to its consequences, with policymakers and observers attempting to interpret the significance of what had occurred behind closed doors. The lack of detailed information only added to the intrigue, allowing speculation to fill the gaps and reinforcing the perception that something fundamental had changed. What remained undeniable was that the interaction had triggered a sequence of events that extended far beyond the confines of a single meeting, influencing decisions, shaping narratives, and redefining expectations across multiple levels. Now the situation stands at a critical juncture, where each development carries the potential to either stabilise or further destabilise the existing order. And the questions that emerge are not limited to immediate policy responses, but extend to the broader trajectory of transatlantic relations and the capacity of established systems to adapt to new realities. Can Europe maintain cohesion under sustained pressure, or will internal divisions deepen as challenges intensify? Will the United States continue along this path, or will strategic recalibration alter the course of events? And perhaps most importantly, has the foundation of a decades-long alliance been permanently altered, or is there still a path toward recalibration and renewal? These are the questions that now define the moment, and the answers remain uncertain, unfolding in real time as decisions are made and consequences take shape. If you want to follow how this story develops, how each move influences the next, and how the balance of power continues to evolve, stay tuned, because what happens next may not be announced with clarity, but it will shape the world in ways that cannot be ignored.